So hi, One Look at Noise podcast. I'm Shane.
I'm Glory.
And we're here with
Austin from the Undertaking.
we're gonna ask him some questions today. I'm gonna start. So what inspired the creation of the band, and what does the band name mean?
Yeah, man. Dude, the Undertaking is a band that's kind of been on and off for years. The guitarist Keith and the drummer Brent and myself we played music together since we were in like junior high school.
Oh,
and
wow.
so just kind of like jammed on and off. But then for a long time, we took a break to, get jobs, start families, go to college and stuff. And so then in 2018, we were watching the last Warped Tour travel through the country, and we're seeing like all these pictures of these bands just like ripping these shows. And I think it like inspired us to say like, hey, we're not done making music. So then after like a flurry of texts, we're like, yo, let's get together and jam. And then like on a Monday night in July of 2018, we got together and then basically committed to doing this. So that's kind of how we started up again. And the band name is completely wrapped in mystery because we don't know where it came from. And at some point in time, it just kind of became our band name back in like, in like high school or whatever. And nobody at this point really knows like when or how it came up. But I think to put it like where we were is like we wanted something like kind of serious, so like the Undertaking. Yeah. But then we had the exclamation point at the end to be like, oh no, it's like serious, but also we're having fun with it. So it just kind of stuck, and we've done that ever since.
I love that.
That's amazing. So congratulations on your upcoming release, Funeral Psalms. How do you feel the response to that announcement so far?
Yeah, man, it's been a wild ride for us up to this point. I mean, all things considered too, like having started up in 2018, we never expected to be here this quickly. So then to get involved with Solid State has been like a dream come true. And then announcing has kind of been like, I'm taking my mask off, so I don't need that. The announcement has been like drinking water from a fire hose, because we're like getting all this exposure to new people and new fans. But then at the same time, it's been like a little overwhelming, because I think certain people wanted us to be a different genre, or maybe when Solid State was about to announce that they were going to sign a band, I think people maybe wanted more of a metalcore sound or had different expectations. And so now that we've released 2 songs and we're about to release our 3rd one, I think people are starting to kind of come around on like, okay, this isn't what we expected it to be. And they're starting to kind of understand what we are as a band. So that's pretty exciting.
That's good.
Well, I'm glad people are finally coming around to it.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, it's the response. I actually jumped to kind of negative. The response has been freaking awesome, and everybody's like, we've had a ton of people just be super stoked on it and reach out, and we're making some rad connections. And so like on a positive note, it's been like super overwhelming in a good way. But then there's a couple people that were like, oh, it's too raw and it's not produced enough, and it's like, well, that's not what we're going for. So
yeah, exactly.
So what made you pick O Negative as the lead single?
Oh, that's a great question. We didn't pick it, which is part of the reason I love it. So when we started having the conversation with Solid State on the rollout, we kind of put out our suggestion for what we thought would be the lead singles and what we could come up with. And then Solid State presented their list, and kind of when it sunk in like what their plan was for our release, in the cycle and the timeline and stuff, it really made perfect sense, because between O Negative, then moving on to No Friends, and then we're gonna this week, which I don't know when the podcast comes out, but the 3rd song on the release cycle is Take Me Down the River. And each one of those songs kind of highlights like a different side of what we do without fully unveiling what like the entire album is. And so O Negative, from Solid State standpoint, was like a really quick song. It's like under 2 minutes, it's under 3 minutes. And it's very chaotic and like kind of punches you in the face. And then No Friends is the next song, does the same thing, where it comes out super strong and just kind of just hammers in this riff on people. And so I think from Solid State standpoint, they wanted to kind of create a little bit of mystery of like, okay, these songs are kind of crazy and chaotic, and let's kind of tease people with these riffs.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was just kind of like samples of what the album was going to be.
Yeah. Have you guys listened to the full thing?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, so that's like insightful to me to know where this conversation can go, because then when you listen to the body of work, those fit in the album in like a very specific spot, but on its own, it's like you can kind of take it as the single that's chaotic and crazy, but then taken with the whole album, it really makes sense on what we're trying to convey.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, Tim definitely hyped this up in the email, like the entire album. He was like, dude, I love this. This is one of my favorite things right now. And I really did enjoy the record when I was going through it. Like,
cool.
Props to Tim.
Yeah. Thanks, Tim.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, because you didn't pick the single, what would have been your choice for the lead single? If you're allowed to tell us, I don't know.
Oh, no, 100%. We kind of thought the 10th song on the album, called I Really Don't Want to Be Here, we thought that was like a good highlight of what we're able to do as a band. And it has like a little bit of clean singing. It has some chaoticness to it. It ends with like a heavy part. So we had, I think, thrown out I Really Don't Want to Be Here. Wrenches was one of the ones that we were suggesting as a single. And then maybe something like Holy Smokes. But yeah, then just as we kind of talked and came up with this plan, it was really fun to hear why they didn't necessarily agree. And then, I mean, we know nothing, and we're like a teeny tiny little baby band. And so we trust Solid State and how they have handled this. And I mean, like the release cycle and schedule so far has like completely crushed. So
Okay, that's good. So is there any meaning behind the album name or cover art?
Yeah, so the album name comes from, this album was written in just like a really, really bad year. So we wrote and recorded and demoed everything out in like at the beginning of quarantine.
Ooh, yeah.
Can I, a little caveat on how this happened is we released a song at the beginning of quarantine because all the shows get canceled. And we're like, okay, we got to write some music. So we start writing. We're about to release the single called Who's Afraid of 11 Wolves. And then we're about to go into just self-releasing an EP. And then because of our manager, Joey, who's the guitarist of the Used, he took that song and he sent it out to a couple people. And then next thing you know, we're on the hook with Solid State. And then we're about to like start on this EP, and we have to pivot really quickly to writing a full-length album, like 11 songs. And so then like a couple months later, we're hopping in the studio. So that all informs kind of where we're at. A lot of this happened really quickly during COVID. And you have a pandemic where people are getting furloughed and 100,000 people are dying in the United States. And you got politics and race, and there's so many things going on. And we are able to then bottle that up. And like, especially in like the lyrics and stuff, there's a lot of frustration and a lot of anger pointed at whoever you want to point that to. But a lot of that was bottled up from this just kind of being created in a bad year. And then for me personally, I'm a man of faith and stuff. So I took kind of David's approach to Psalms and how he just like cried out to God and he yelled at God. And there was this like real open relationship. And I kind of took that and used that to inform the album title, which is Funeral Psalms, which is kind of like a more dour and bleak look on maybe Christianity, which just is my personal relationship with that. And then the album artwork is super dope because we have used a guy named Dave Quiggle. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar who he is, but he does a lot of stuff in the hardcore industry, and he's my tattoo artist up in Temecula. So he's done all of our artwork up to this point. And we're going to like move forward with him. And Adam from Solid State calls and he's like, yo, give me a shot with this new guy, Trey Hales, who works with Counterparts and a couple of record labels around town. He's a kind of an up and coming artist. And Adam Scatula from Solid State art directed the whole thing. And they just like completely crushed the whole look and feel of this thing.
Definitely.
And then if you guys are fans of horror movies at all, it's a combination of Midsommar, The Witch, and Darren Aronofsky's Mother, where you have some of like kind of that pagan like imagery around the edges. And then the kind of the forest theme is kind of taken from the movie The Witch. And then the font is from a movie called Mother that came out a couple years ago, which was like all pen, like ink cursive and stuff. So Adam and I are big horror film fans. So we kind of geeked out on designing the album cover with some of those references.
Definitely.
I love
that is amazing. And you just like, you gave us like a lot of information really fast. So your manager is the guitarist in the Used. And then
have you heard of the Used?
Yes.
Fucking
love the Used. Because I hate how you just said that so nonchalantly. Like, yeah, manager's one of the guys in the Used, you know. Anyways, moving on.
Joey Bradford, love the man. He's our family now. But he's our manager. But the reason why this whole thing happened is because he was supposed to be on tour with the Used.
Yeah.
And there's like a sick tour that they were supposed to go on, but then that got canceled. So he had some free time. So he was able to finish his studio called the Vibatorium. And then that's here in San Diego. We just went and recorded an album at our buddy's house, who happens to be the guitarist of the Used. And that's really cool.
Yeah.
I hate how you said canceled tour, because now my brain's going a mile a minute.
I'll let you know maybe offline. I don't know if it's actually public information, because it's still probably going to happen, but it's definitely, if you're a fan of the Used, that was definitely a tour that you wanted to be at.
Yeah, I don't think it's public information, so
not yet.
Definitely don't go leaking it.
No. Wait, so I wanted to actually ask, because we're talking about the Used now, what is it like just having a mentor almost? Would you count him as a mentor for your band?
Yeah. I'll be super candid. It's very frustrating because I could send 50 million emails and I'll get 2 responses. And then Joey will be on a phone call and I'm like, hey, can we get connected with this guy? And he's like, yeah, let me send a text, and he'll respond. And I don't say this pretentiously at all. And he'll be like, this guy's going to respond to me super quick. And literally within like a minute or so, like, they're like, what do you need, dude? Like, because Joey, I don't know if you've ever gotten to know him. He's like one of the kindest, one of the chillest dudes you'll ever meet. And so everybody loved him. And being able to just kind of just be part of his bubble is really, really cool and really fun. And so for him, I mean, just being able to like open up doors for us. And then he kind of, in a really cool way, between Solid State and between Joey, a lot of them just kind of open up doors for us, and then they trust us to kind of walk through. So Joey's constantly just like going ahead of us, just to be like, yo, like, you got to check out this band. And then, you know, he makes the connections for us, and then we take it from there. But then, I mean, being able to pick his brain, I mean, he's been around forever. So I don't know if Joey was a guitarist and a singer for a band called Thieves and Liars. He was in Hell or High Water with Brandon Soller from Atreyu. And the dude's just been around. So for us to be able to like glean any and all information from him is like, yeah, it's the coolest thing ever.
That's so awesome.
I can't imagine. It's amazing.
So can you tell me a little bit about your writing process for this record? You said wrote it in quarantine and everything, so I'm curious how you guys went about that.
Yeah. Our guitarist is an EDM producer, or I'm sorry, our drummer is an EDM producer. So all that to say is he has a pretty tight home studio. And between that ability and then our 2 guitarists being able to like send riffs on their computer, it's really a fun and exhilarating process, because then Johnny or Keith have an idea for a song. They send out the riff to Brent. Brent takes it and kind of restructures it and makes it a song. And then once we kind of approve on like the general structure of a song, I'll kind of start throwing some lyrics out. Excuse me. And so then, like, even right now, like we haven't even released Funeral Psalms. We have like 7 demos floating around for like the next album, because we're just like always writing and always riffing. And so then when Solid State calls and says they want to sign us and they want us to hop in the studio, we had like 15 or so songs kind of floating around in our drop boxes. And then at some point we start to send those to Joey. And then once we hop into the studio, we'll kind of take those templates and throw it on the wall, record some drums, and then you kind of start riffing through it. And that's the crazy thing with computers nowadays, is you have a WAV file of a song and you're like, oh, this section right here doesn't quite work right there, but what if you put it right here and then you stretch this part out, and then just on the computer you can kind of map out the trajectory of a song. And so yeah, that's what we're kind of always doing, is just always riffing, always writing, and just always like throwing ideas out there. And I mean, to be honest, it's super inspiring, because then in my head I'm always writing more lyrics, because you never know when like a riff that comes through our emails is going to match up like perfectly with the riff idea, or vice versa. Maybe I have a riff and I have a certain lyric pattern. I can put that in a voice memo and send it out to the guitarist and the drummer, and they can kind of make something work of that, which is always so terribly embarrassing because the voice demos are always like so bad, and then it ends up on like a demo that we listen to over and over again, and I'm like, no, that's so bad.
Like, I promise this isn't what it's going to sound like.
Exactly.
It's gonna be better.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Solid. All right. So I want you to pick your favorite lyric off the album and tell us the meaning behind it.
On the song Nostalgia Can Be a Nasty Beast, I say cowabunga, and that's it. Let's go.
Words to live by, definitely.
Let's see, like Ninja Turtles, man, all day long.
Oh my god.
I love
so
that.
true. Oh, I love the Ninja Turtles. Love them.
There it is.
There we go. Perfect.
Just gonna hang there. It's fine.
So no, I'm kidding. But truthfully, in every one of the songs, I try to like layer in a couple little pop culture references for people to kind of chew on. So it's fun to kind of pepper those in. That's a good question. Man, I'm really proud of a lot of the stuff that we wrote, and I think my writing process, I'm always trying to make sure that I can feel what we're saying. And so if I start with like a general theme for a song, I'm going to work until that actually means something personally to me. And yeah, maybe something like Oh Negative, which is a song that was written kind of in like the pits of anxiety and depression, where it's a song where you're like crying out to either the universe or whatever God you believe in, and like nobody's responding to you. And so it's like you like on your knees, just kind of like crying out, like, can somebody please help us here? And like, nobody's responding. And so it's like a really kind of mean and biting song. But then in the middle of O Negative, I throw out the lyric that sometimes dead is better, which is a quote from Pet Sematary, a Stephen King movie and novel. And so it's kind of fun just to kind of pepper in like a little bit of this serious subject matter, and then kind of tuck in like a little pop culture reference in there.
Definitely.
Awesome.
I'm sorry. This is the second time you brought up like horror movies, and you already said you guys like horror movies. I want to ask, like, what's your top 3? Because I've just recently gotten into them. So this is a little frustrating because then I kind of sound cliche, but the original Shining with Jack Nicholson is one of my favorite. Okay.
The Mist. Have you seen The Mist?
I don't think so. I think I saw it. Is it like on Netflix or something? I think I'm
not sure. They
the
made
cover.
a TV show out of it, but there's a movie called The Mist, which was done by Frank Darabont, who did Green Mile, and he did the first couple episodes of Walking Dead. And when you watch it, it has like one of the worst endings of all time, in the sense that it's like a gut punch, and the movie ends, and you're just like, no, there's more, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's so good. And so I love The Mist. And then Alien. Let's call Alien a horror film, but the original Alien is like one of the greatest movies of all time. I like that one.
Alien's very good.
All right.
I agree with those. Okay, good.
So how did you go about sorting the track list? Did you write the opener to be the opener and the closer to be the closer, or did they just kind of fall that way?
No, this is like one of the most exciting parts of writing. Is one night we were sitting in the studio and we're like, hey, we got to kind of come up with like an order. And we just started with a whiteboard, like writing down potential song order. And it was like an argument, and it was like a flurry of just like, no, it's a bad idea. And then
your idea sucks.
At some point, no, seriously, like even I'll go back to I Really Don't Want to Be Here at song 10. Like that was a song that we potentially thought could have been like song 2 or 3.
Oh, wow.
But then as we started to kind of build the order and really realize like where things kind of locked into place, that song just naturally fit at 10, which, so you kind of start to take each song for what it is and realize like the problem with being included in Apocalypse, it has this great intro and it starts with this like kind of jolt of energy.
Yeah.
And you finish that song, and then you want something that's going to like really attack the listener. So No Friends is the second song naturally, because it comes out with this heavy hammering riff. and then it ends on such like a cliffhanger where the song doesn't resolve. And then you enter into Plague, which is like a little bit of a palate cleanser because there's some clean vocals on there.
Yeah.
And so then the songs kind of just all fit into place. And then that's like one of the most exciting parts, because then you realize like, okay, we're piecing these all together with, and everything worked out just fine. Always was the closer because of how that song ends with like the really big breakdown.
Yeah.
But then unintentionally, we're like burying the lead in the sense that there's a song featuring Cove from Seosin as song number 11 on the album, which a lot of people would probably have that as like the fourth song on the album to kind of like attract people to it. But we're like, no, we're really proud of these songs and really happy with like where they're at in the place. And then, like everything kind of fell into an accidental order. And the song listing and the progression of the album was really fun to realize like, okay, all these songs actually had a place that they were meant to be when we put them in those, when we put them in that exact spot.
All right.
That's amazing. I'm happy you guys didn't like break up from fighting over the track list.
Oh, no. We're chill, man. Like our fights aren't even that bad. It's just like, no, I don't agree. And it's like, well, you're wrong because this is right.
Simply, you're wrong. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up the feature because I wanted to ask how that came about.
Yeah. So Joey, and I wish it was this like insane story of like magical coincidences and stuff, but Joey and Cove are actually good friends from high school. And so then we kind of had circled that we wanted Cove or somebody to feature on one of the songs. And the night that we were recording and everything worked out just fine, it was time for the feature. And we said, hey, we would love to have somebody on this chorus. What about Cove? And so Joey picks up his phone and he's like, hey, Cove, what are you doing tonight? And Cove is like, oh, I'm chilling. And he's like, you want to come and write a song with Undertaking? And he's like, yeah. So like 20 minutes later, Cove busts through the door of the studio, hops on the mic, records the chorus, and then like an hour and a half later, he's like on his way out the door. But yeah, he's a buddy of ours too. So yeah, it's pretty tight.
That's impressive. That's very impressive. So like legit like 20 minutes, and then how long?
Yeah, so he lives down the street. He lives down the street from Joey, so it was like a 10-minute drive, 20-minute, whatever. And I'm not exaggerating. Probably he was in the studio for like an hour and a half, and then he just like took off. But I mean, again, like there's a relationship there. So Joey and him are good buddies. Joey manages his band Dead American as well as ours. So then there's like connections like that. When you start to look through, you're like, oh yeah, this like makes total logical sense. But in the flow of like a couple hours on this random like Tuesday night in August of 2020, you're like, yo, that was super dope and like a once in a lifetime opportunity. So I can send you guys some of the footage, behind the scenes stuff too. It's really cool because he just like hops in and Joey's like throwing we had written the melody and the lyrics and stuff, and Cove just gets behind the mic and starts riffing on that, and then Joey is sending harmonies over to him, and he's just picking those up and putting them on the mic and stuff. So it was really, really organic and really fun.
That's awesome.
Please send that over. That'd be amazing to watch. That'd be great. So while going through the album, what band or artist influences pop out the most to you?
Yeah, so we're all a little bit older, in like our early to mid 30s, and so we're very much influenced by the hardcore stuff that kind of came out in like 2003 to 2010. And so for us, like massive influences are going to be some of the solid state bands from that era, the Chariot, Under Oath, Norma Jean, and then stuff like Every Time I Die. But then the nuances of our band is Keith is going to come from a rock and roll background where like one of his favorite bands is Led Zeppelin. But then from a hardcore standpoint, he's very much influenced by Dillinger Escape Plan. So Keith is going to have this kind of like mathcore riff factory rooted in rock and roll. Yeah. And then Johnny is going to come from more of like a singer-songwriter perspective where he's like our little emo guy, and he's going to like want to bring like song structure and chorus, verse, chorus, bridge type of stuff. And so that's like the fun melting point of our band is we kind of hide this song structure within like a chaotic form.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of taking the Dillinger chariot kind of chaos, but then wrapping it into like a consumable song structure, which I think is really an interesting like wrinkle that we do, where you're like, if you really dive into our songs, you're like, oh, there's very much a clear verse and clear chorus and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
All right. So this question should be super, super quick. Off the top of your head, I want you to describe this album for new listeners in 3 words. No more, no less.
3 words: energetic, aggressive, and alligators.
Alligator. Yeah, I saw that in your bio. I was like, what does alligator mean?
In one of our first songs off of our EP, Scavengers, I threw in the word alligators randomly, and kind of just stuck. And people like thought it was funny that I was yelling alligators in the middle of a song.
Yeah.
And so people started to bring inflatable alligators to our shows. Like our guitarist Keith, there's some pictures of him getting pulled through the venue, like he's on the ground on the alligator, and people were just like pulling him through the crowd.
Oh my god.
Wow.
So that, I don't know, for some reason that's kind of embodied a little bit of our live show, like chaos is alligators. So.
Wow. Okay. So you're the alligator band now. That's
sure,
iconic.
Yeah, exactly.
It's iconic. You have a brand now. So is there a certain feeling or emotion you want this album to invoke in your listeners?
Yeah, well, man, the whole thing of writing music it's such like a visceral experience. And so the point of our music is when somebody puts it on, especially if they're intending to listen to like hardcore and punk rock, that's from song 1 to song 11, that you're always going to kind of find that ability to just kind of bob your head.
Yeah.
You know, and it's got that feel of like, okay, I can understand what's going on, and I can comprehend kind of what this song is trying to get me to do in terms of like moving my body. So I want people to be able to feel that from like a core standpoint of like putting the song on when you're running or working out or just hanging around the house, but you kind of feel the groove of the song. But then underneath that, I want people to feel authenticity. And that's a huge part of our band, is that these lyrics and us in our general vibe, we're very authentic, real people. And we're just a bunch of dudes who want to get together and play music and have fun doing that. And I think I want people to feel that freedom to just kind of let loose. When you listen to our music, that there's no expectations on what you can feel or not feel or whatever. But then, from a lyrical standpoint too, all this stuff, it means something, you know, and I hope people listen to and dive into the lyrics and they can attach meaning to that on their own. For me as a lyricist, I don't want to tell people necessarily what a song really, really means. I'll talk all day about it if you want to, but I want you to listen to the song and attach your own personal meaning to it, so that song becomes something else as soon as I release it into the world.
Yeah, makes sense.
That's good.
Yeah. So where do you see the band in the next 5 years?
I have no idea, man. Friggin' 2.5 years ago, we were not doing this at all. And so in 2.5 years, we've gone from a garage band of a bunch of dads, and now we're signed to like a rad label and putting out a full length on vinyl and doing some sick stuff. And I think the next logical step is that, 5 years, let's put out like 3 more albums and just like take the world by storm and just keep pushing. And then I would love to play some cool shows. I think we're starting to have conversations about what tours would look like, what shows would look like, especially now that the industry is starting to wake up, but really nobody knows what's coming up. So for us, I mean, there are no expectations and there's no limitations. And like, just, I guess what I mean by that is in the last 2.5 years, man, to see where we've come and where we are now, like, I'm not going to put a cap on us. Like, let's just keep going.
Exactly. Sky's the limit. Do everything.
Exactly. So who knows? Like, let's go to Japan. Let's go to Europe. Let's destroy.
Exactly.
Take over the world, man.
That'd be amazing. So for the last couple questions, we're actually going to shift away from music, if that's okay with you.
Yes, please.
6. So we're going to go straight to death row.
Boom.
So if you're on death row, what would your last meal be with a drink?
Oh, I just want I want tacos. I want carnitas tacos with gin and tonic, and I'm good to go.
All right.
Solid.
That was very easy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I'm from San Diego. I could eat tacos every single day for every single meal. So
that makes sense. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Tacos are amazing, so I agree with you on that.
But they have to be like real tacos. It's not like
yeah.
Tex-Mex stuff or like NorCal tacos. They're like real tacos. So.
Exactly. Yeah, authentic.
So if you could live in one fiction world for a week, where would you live?
Oh, what was that?
If you could live in one fiction world for a week, where would you live?
One fictional world?
For a week, yep.
Oh, man. I mean, the Shire would be like pretty dope to live in. They chill hard.
They do? They have like, what, 10 meals a day?
Yeah,
life.
Man. I mean, you just take a bunch of naps, you eat a bunch. Gandalf comes, you guys smoke a little bit, you got fireworks. It's
exactly.
Like, you're just chilling. Yeah.
It's the dream. It's the dream. So I have the honor of asking the last question. Every single person we've spoken to has actually said it is the most important question. What is your favorite color?
I'm so boring. My favorite color is black. So like my entire wardrobe is just black t-shirts, got a black hat on. But I used to love blue. But I mean, black is a good color. So.
Okay, but what shade of blue?
Good navy blue, not light blue. It's got to be like a darker, warm blue, kind of like the old Padre hat. So it's like nice little navy blue action. Yeah.
All right.
Solid.
So as Glory said, that's all the questions we have today. Is there anything that you would like to plug?
No, I mean, thanks for having us on. I mean, you guys are killing it with this podcast. I was checking it out when Tim sent it our way, and it seems like you guys have a lot of fun doing it. And I just always want to thank people for doing this kind of stuff, because you're keeping the scene kind of going and highlighting bands, and that's such a big thing for us these days. And I mean, for anybody who's listening, and if you want to check out the band or our album Funeral Psalms, I mean, just follow us on Spotify, and we really appreciate that. I try not to beg people to buy our merch, because I know times are tough right now, but it's like a like on Instagram, a like on Spotify. I mean, that goes so far. And you guys know that from your podcast, like rate and review 5 stars. Like, we're all trying to fight that algorithm for attention.
Yeah,
definitely.
All right. Well, thank you for now. This has been Austin from the Undertaking, and we're the Good Noise podcast.